is Edelweiss. Welcome to our Analytics and Data TechCast today. We have a panel of amazing women here to discuss about women in Oracle technologies. Before we start, let me do a quick introduction of myself. I'm Oracle Director, specialized in analytics and data integration. I'm co-founder of the Uruguayan Oracle User Group and Director of Education in Latin America Oracle User Community. And recently, I'm being part of the Analytics and Data User Community too, and it's an honor for me to host this TechCast today. So about Analytics and Data TechCast, we usually have a couple of TechCasts per month. So then in May, we are going to have, on May 7th, we are going to have the Great Chef Smith presented SQL tips. And on May 21, we're going to have the good, bad, and the ugly of machine learning model deployment, which is going to be led by Charlie Berger. Okay, so we have all the speakers, all the contact information for our speakers in the presentation, which is being recorded, and it's going to be available on our page shortly after the text. Okay, so we are going to post the PDF with the slides and also the recording later on YouTube. Okay, and one thing that is important, if you want to share your knowledge, you have some experience in Oracle technology and you want to share your knowledge with the rest of the people, we are encouraging you to submit a proposal abstract, and our internal subcommittee will review it and choose the best and work with you to slot you in a future TechCast. Okay. One important thing, this is a great opportunity for you to ask questions to these amazing women. So please do it in the Q&A section, below, not in the chat, please, so we can track the questions and answer them. Okay. So without any more preambles, let me introduce you the moderator of this panel, the one and only Debra Lilley, who is Associate Director in Accenture, an Oracle Ace Director, and an inspiration to many of us. Debra, the audience is all yours.
Thank you very much, Edelweiss, and thank you all for joining us. And I've looked at social media and it says amazing group of people, and Adel has just said that, and very honoured to be called an amazing group of women. But actually, what we're here for today is not just a platform to say, hey, we're really amazing. It's to share our stories to encourage other women, and to, not just women, to encourage people about how we can, our experiences in our careers that can help the audience and inspire the audience. So really, really proud to be part of this. Edelweiss said that she was an ACE director, and I myself am. And if you don't know about that program, it's Oracle's Advocate program. It's about not just having knowledge, it's about sharing that knowledge with other people. And so my first guest that we're going to introduce, Heli. You're also an ACE director and Groundbreaker ambassador. Tell us the path that led you to become one of those and how that's helped your career.
Okay, so it started actually when I was trying to find speakers to Finland. So I was part of the Finnish user group, and I attended many of the conferences to find great speakers. And while I was doing that, actually those organizers were asking me to present. And since they were giving me a free ticket to the conference, I was thinking I'm obliged to give a presentation. So I started to give presentations, and I learned I like it a lot. So that kind of gave me the information about the ACE program and also the possibility to be part of it. But if I'm very honest, to encourage everybody, I was rejected the first time. And the reason was that Oracle said that it's not possible that I can do everything I tell them I'm doing. Now they know me better, so they already know I do everything I say and much more. So that was kind of my short story. How it has helped me in a career. I think number one thing is that I have learned to be more self-confident. So it kind of gives me the confidence of being who I am. It sounds strange, but it is true, because I always have friends encouraging me when I think that I'm a fraud. So I really don't know anything, and imposter. So then people just come to me and they say, no, you know what you are doing and you are great on what you are doing, so keep on doing it. So it kind of gave me the self-confidence to do my work better than I used to do it before. So short answer.
Brilliant. And before we go on to the next slide, can I just go back to Edelweiss and say, what attracted you to the program?
Well, the first time that I heard about the program, it was when we organized the OTN tour here in Uruguay in 2010. And all the speakers that came here were Oracle ACE directors. And one of them, Hans Forbrick, saw me presenting, despite he didn't know much Spanish. And he told me that, you know, you have everything that you need, everything that is needed for, you know, to go through this path. So he convinced me. And I thought this is a very enrichment experience, because you have the possibility to meet other people that and to share the knowledge, and also to learn a lot. I think this is one important lesson. You're not only sharing what you know, but you also learn a lot from the others, and also from the questions that you have received in presentations. So this is a very, very enrichment experience that I recommend to everybody. And at that time, there wasn't any Latin American woman in the program. So after some years, I was the first Latin American woman to be ACE director. And I think it's our mission to, you know, to encourage women to be part of this program and be part of the technology world.
Thank you. Okay, let's move to Anne. So Anne, you've worked in a lot in the public sector, and now you're working in the private sector. And can you just tell us a little bit about your career and how that's worked between the two?
Sure. So before the public sector, I worked for HP for longer than I'm willing to admit anymore. And at HP, I'm actually an engineer by education. I am not. I'm as a CIO. My background is not as an IT professional. At one point in my career at HP, I wound up getting reorganized into IT, and that's how I wound up in IT. And while I was still at HP, I was, among other things, the IT director for a company called Indigo that HP acquired, which is an Israeli digital press company. So I had that background. My last job at HP was back in R&D, but I moved, when I left HP, there are two things that happened. One, which is that I wound up going into the public sector as as Chief Technology Officer for a school district, which is the equivalent of a CIO. And the other is that I happened to run into someone at an event that I had previously met while I was at HP, and he was working on the Presidential Appointments Project. And that is a project that is designed to get LGBTQ people into the administration. So it was a combination, the appointment in the Obama administration was a combination of preparation, of having this experience in IT and of having moved into the public sector and having that experience, as well as sheer luck of running into someone I knew who was interested in recruiting people into that project. So, you know, there was a case a little bit in terms of my move into the administration of the right place at the right time, but there's also something else, which is that there's a lot of opportunity for women in leadership positions in the public sector. Unfortunately, part of that reason is because men with similar capabilities can make a lot more money than women at that level of capability. So men will pass up these positions because they don't pay as well. You know, and in some cases by orders of magnitude, right? As the CIO of the Environmental Protection Agency, I was CIO for an organization that was the size of a Fortune 300 company and was making a small fraction of what a CIO of a Fortune 500 company would be making. So there's that opportunity for women, that there's maybe less competition from men. There's also the fact that in the public sector, there is a bit more of a meritocracy in terms of looking at people completely on the merits of their work as opposed to their relationships and who they know in their network. Even though ironically, it was networking that got me in that front door. So that was, you know, it was sort of a bit of luck that got me there. But I also think it was my preparation and my capability and readiness to do the job. I just point out, after the Obama administration, I went to Santa Clara County, and now I'm at Dell. And in terms of that change, right, so all of the things that I've done in my public sector career put me in the position to be ready to do this work for Dell, which is basically advising public sector CIOs on how to be more successful advising our sales force on how to support those CIOs better and ensuring that we can provide the products and services that they need, as opposed to what maybe a salesperson would like to sell. So, you know, that experience in the public sector was what prepared me to do this new job in the private sector.
I've often said that I'm not technical, and Heli will be laughing at this, but I think that one of the best things that we can do when we're encouraging other people is that ability to be able to talk to people with different labels. Okay, so, you know, an engineer that can talk technology, you know, a business person that can talk technology, or just as much important the other way around. And when you're encouraging others, mentoring others, working with others, that ability to talk more than one language is really important. Our jobs are not in boxes anymore. So our next panelist is Abby, who has also moved from public sector into the private. And I like to say that we've all gained by Abby moving into private sector, because now lots more organisations can have a little bit of her in consultancy. So Abby?
Yeah, I mean, a similar kind of story to Anne, in that, well, it gave me the comfort to kind of explore the world in public sector. It was quite protected. There was lots of mentors and stuff like that. Slightly different in the UK public sector. It was all men at the top. So 24 men to 1 female on the leadership team. So I always felt like there wasn't a place for me. There wasn't a career path, because you had to be male, certain age, certain colour, and I just wasn't that. So that was one element. And kind of picking up what Anne said, like, coming into the private sector, you know, it does pay more. There's no way around that. The confidence I built at the public sector, you know, I go to conferences and people were like, a public sector's managed to do that? How? You know, and I was just like, well, it's not that hard. You just do this, this, and this. And like, what? and that's what I find when I go to conferences. Like, you just do this, and that's what I found that I was good at, was like you're saying, Debra, being able to translate it into kind of easier speak, so people could then start to pick it up and run with it themselves. And it's no, everyone thinks of data science as this little unicorn thing that sits in a corner and it's like super cool and it's Python and it's got to be this, that, and the other. And actually, it's not. We need to make it more accessible to people so that they can run with it. And actually, what I'm finding is, by doing that, you kind of find that lots of people have these skills, and moving to private sector enables me to go to far more conferences, far more user groups, and encourage women and say, look, actually, you've got this, and there's a load of women right behind you who are all advocates of shine theory, and we want you to get on stage and share your story and share how you did it, because you really do know your stuff. And that's what my step from public to private gave me. And now I get to come on webcasts with you, Debra, and get to show the world what we can do.
Actually, I love the fact that you get asked to present about being a data scientist because you're a brilliant data scientist, not because you're a woman. Like, and I've had a conversation today around Heli. You know, I said, oh, if you want to know about machine learning, have you heard Heli's presentation? That's not because Heli's a woman. It's because, yes, but then Heli, I found out in that conversation that you're writing another book, and I thought you'd promised you weren't going to do that again.
I know. It was a mistake.
Okay. Right, okay, let's move on then. So we have Melli here. She's going to talk to us about being a product manager in Oracle.
Thanks, Debra. It's great to be here. And yeah, I guess I'm the first of the product managers from Oracle who's speaking. I joined Oracle as a developer. And then after a while, I decided I liked product management. I had certain skills that I could bring to the job. And I see my role as sort of a kind of a bridge between developers and customers. Developers who are building these great products, and customers are also building great solutions. And looking for the features in the products that will help them build their solutions. So if I may, I just want to go back a little bit in time to talk about my background, which I think gives me a little bit of a different perspective when it comes to working in the technology world today. So I grew up in India, which is interesting because India has hurdles when it comes to women taking on careers outside the home. But once you've crossed those hurdles, India does not have the hurdles of discouraging women from going into technology. In other words, it's very natural for women to be in technology. It's considered a good career for women. It has good financial prospects. It's considered to be a more protected environment than some others. I mean, you're not sloshing through the jungle or jumping off planes. So you're in an office environment, and that's considered good for women. So I grew up, I took my first computer science courses in an environment where it was very natural for women to do this. So even with all the hurdles that women face in India, in my computer science class, 1/3 of the people were women. So it's only when I came to the US for graduate school that I said, oh, okay, this is interesting. And when I was doing my PhD in computer science at Purdue, I was one among, I think one of 2 women in a group of 40 people working on their PhDs. But maybe because I had been exposed to an environment where it was very natural for women to be in technology, I find that I don't mind, or I shouldn't say I don't mind. I'm perfectly comfortable being in the minority. I'm perfectly comfortable being in a room full of male colleagues, and I'm perfectly comfortable speaking my mind. I don't feel intimidated. I feel confident, and I really think it has something to do with how I grew up and how technology was seen as a very natural career for women, different from the United States. So I feel so. I would say that's the thing I try to tell people, that you are as good as everyone else. So you should just be confident and speak your mind. You're as equal as everyone else. And that's, I think, important in meetings and so on, so that you don't feel, you're not quiet and you don't retreat into a corner and so on and so forth.
I think that's lovely, and that's my utopia, where people grow up that it's not an issue and it's natural. I remember once, and I think Heli, you were there, going to the Bulgarian user group, and they didn't know why we wanted a WIT session, you know, because they grow up knowing it's a good career. It's a good career with good prospects, and the room was, you know, it was equal. And so I think that's lovely, the idea of it not being a barrier right at the beginning, because do you know what? That's how equality in our industry will happen, is when people aren't frightened to get into it, because, you know, there are opportunities for women, lots of opportunities. Especially Oracle has got phenomenal amounts of successful women in senior places, and so it's getting people to join in the first place. Okay, so my next one is Maria. Hello, Maria.
Good morning from California.
Hello. Oh, so good to see you. So tell me, what do you enjoy most about your job, and what are the skills that have been important for your success?
Oh, so one of the advantages, I think, of being a product manager is that you wear many different hats. And so you're asked to do lots of different things. But I think the 2 things I enjoy most about what we do is probably sharing new features and functionality with our customers, as well as tips and tricks. I love to try and show people technology or functionality that we've got, that we've probably had for 5 or 6 releases, and is super helpful, but they just don't know about it. So I love to do that. And then the other thing I love to do is listen to what the customer needs and take that back to development and lobby for it, lobby for that functionality to show up in the next release. And to bring what the customer needs back in and get the developers to understand, because it's not that the developers don't want to help the customers, but oftentimes they kind of get carried away with there's this great new technology that I want to work on or learn about, and so I'm going to put in a feature regarding that, even though I don't think anybody in the world will ever use it. And so just bringing them back to reality and saying, this is actually what people need. And can you help me build that for them so that we can actually help them with what they do day to day?
Brilliant. And then making up our trio of Oracle product managers, we have Carol. And I know, Carol, that you're a very passionate person about STEM. So share some of your story for us.
Well, I've been in the tech industry for almost my entire career, and actually I've been at Oracle for almost my entire career, which is a little bit unusual these days. But back to a little bit about what Melli was saying and how growing up, it was very common for girls to get into computer science and STEM. What I think really is important these days, I have a son and 2 daughters, is to make sure that from a very young age, kids get exposed to STEM, whether, it's participating in science fairs in elementary level, going to summer camps and exposing them to what environmental science or computer science. And then another thing is that I think a lot of people don't take advantage of and should is the robotics programs. Lego Mindstorm that starts in middle school, and the first robotics that's actually based in New Hampshire, because I think the kids get a lot of exposure to working in teams, doing a lot around programming, trying to get things working together. And then they are more inclined to, especially girls these days, to stay in STEM and to major in computer science and to work at companies like at Oracle. Also, I don't know if any of you have ever gone to the Grace Hopper conferences sponsored by Anita, org, which is really fabulous. If any of you have ever gone, it's the #1 women in technology conference worldwide. And I know in this day of coronavirus, it may be canceled in the near term, but they have a lot of online opportunities where you can get exposed to a lot of wonderful people and be in the networking program with them and participate and learn a lot about what's going on in the industry. So it's a lot of those educational opportunities that I think girls really need to get exposed to today. And maybe in the past it was more boys, but I think now from a very young age, once they learn all these different opportunities and know how to network, that leads them into a great career path.
Brilliant. So you can see that we've got an amazing group of people and, doing different things and different roles within technology here. So please do ask your questions, as Edelweiss said, in the Q&A. And I'm just going to ask Edelweiss, I know that you've got a big interest in STEM, and I know that your user group does a lot with universities. Do you want to tell us something about that?
Yeah, so usually we, in the Latin American user community, we have all the Latin American countries, so it's like more than 20. And it's different for each country. But for example, here in Uruguay, in the university, the amount of students that are going to the University of Engineering, only 20% are women. So I think it's pretty important to have these conversations with the girls before, university, so in school, in high school, and just to show, that, and it's different in Latin America in the following sense. So most of you are English native speakers. So for us, that we have to learn another language. So we have to learn English, for example, in order to be here, something like that. It is important for them that know if they learn, for example, English, the job market, if they decide to go to technology, decide to go to IT, it's the whole world. It's not just their country. And this is such a big surprise for them. And this is a very good incentive, because it's not that I have only this possibility, but I have the whole world, because language and technology is the same in every single country. So if I want to do data science, if I want to do machine learning, it's the same thing if I do it in Uruguay. So I will use, Oracle machine learning, or we use Python, or we use R. So it's the same language and the same programs if I do it in UK. So it's a universal way to work. And this is, I think, it's a good message for the girls. They say, you know what, you have all these possibilities. All the world is waiting for you. You know, I think this is the important message for the girls.
That's really interesting, because I did our local STEM organisation where I live. They do speed dating in schools, so they get a whole load of technologists, STEM people to come into a school, and then we're speed dated with the children about what we're doing. And I did it recently in an Irish language school in Belfast. And what I was trying to tell these children was they were already at an advantage. They already spoke 2 languages. And therefore, the sheer act of learning some of the technology languages that we use was going to be, you know, they were already going to have a head start on it.
Excellent.
And, you know, they hadn't appreciated that. In fact, I told their teachers, you should be drilling this into them from day one, that they're going to stand out from everybody else, because we're not so good at learning multiple languages, English speakers. But it was really, really important.
So Deborah, when you spoke to those students, were they boys and girls, or are they just girls?
No,
Both.
they were boys and girls,
Okay.
but they didn't see any difference. So it was lovely. They didn't see whether they were girl or boys causing them an issue by choosing STEM. Interestingly, the questions they asked were, does it pay well? They were very interested in what it paid. Of course. And they wanted to know what was the worst day in your job, right? They wanted to know, what was the worst thing? They were given a list of questions up front, and they all found it very good to find other questions. So, So, Anne, you mentioned networking as a helpful tool. So, what recommendations would you do around networking and meeting other people in your industry?
I'm like the world's worst networker. Even though, you know, I networked my way into my job in the Obama administration. You know, I think, and I actually find it's funny because, you know, since we've all been at home, you know, I made my transition to working at home about 2 weeks before we all locked down, because my new job is working at home and traveling. But with everybody working at home, I am finding myself having conversations with people that I've never met, that someone recommended I talk to, or that I have not talked to for years. And we're getting on a Zoom call and we're talking. And, you know, I think that part of network, the most important part of networking is being willing to talk to people that you have no idea why you're talking to them, right? You know, in the sense of they're just an interesting person, and I'm going to have a conversation with them, and I'm not expecting anything from it necessarily. They're not expecting anything from it. We're just going to talk. I think that you know, going into, it works differently for people, but I find, you know, going into networking with a purpose is much more challenging for me than going into networking just going to talk to people, right? If I'm looking for a job and I'm trying to network my way to a job, I find that much more daunting than simply let's talk and see what comes out of this conversation. And, you know, you get to know a lot of people over time, and you build those connections, and then sort of serendipitous things happen. Like, you know, my opportunity to go work in the Obama administration was the result of, you know, running into someone with no intention other than to chat with them. So, you know, I think that making an effort to talk to people, to know lots of people in lots of industries, in lots of types of jobs, you know, makes life more interesting, and interesting things come out of it. As I think about the, you know, the many things that I'm working on right now, I've worked on in the past, you know, they have mostly come out of those kinds of interactions.
Personally, the reason I present is so that I don't have to be doing the networking, because I'm useless at it. But does anyone else have a comment about networking? We've got a couple of questions that have asked around networking.
So we have one question from Tony Horn. She says, hello, it is great to listen to such an amazing panel. Thank you for sharing your experience. I wanted to know if there were any materials, reading, podcasts, or tech challenges that you love to indulge in on your free time. What do you do to sharpen your skills and keep up to date with the ever-changing technologies? So who do you want to answer?
Can I jump in for a quick? I know it's going to sound like I'm plugging, but honestly, I'm not. I go to the Ask Tom office hours. So luckily for me, most of them happen very early in the morning. But so many different groups at Oracle are doing so much different stuff. It's really hard for me to keep up even with what we're doing, never mind the whole industry. And so the office hours is a great way for me to kind of listen in to see what my colleagues are up to and what the greater organization is up to. And they're also recorded, which is nice. So if I miss one, I can go back and listen to it. But the Ask Tom office hours is definitely one of the places I go in my spare time or free time to find out what's going on technology-wise.
Heli, how do you keep up?
I study all the time. I was just saying to my colleagues that actually lockdown is very bad for me because I work and I study all the time. I just don't leave my sofa where I have my laptop. So I have just taken 2 certificates because Oracle is now letting you have free certificates. It's actually a great program. They have good videos and then you can do the certification test for free. So I've been doing that. So I'm learning a lot about the cloud. So I've been thinking I know, but now I know I didn't know. Now I know so much more. So I've been doing that. Then of course I study about machine learning all the time because that's a field that is evaluating very fast. There's a lot of new things happening. So I read a lot. I prefer reading, but I do like videos as well. So any kind of things. Podcasts, not so much. I don't like to just listen. So I prefer seeing a face as well when I see a video. But reading is my #1.
I love that you've done something that's not your core topic. I always like, when I go to a conference, I like to go to the sessions about something I know nothing about.
I do the same. I love it.
That's how I learn. And I always go to open world. Like, we say these things like traditionally thinking, will that even happen this year? But anyway, I go to open world and I think about the things that they're saying, and I choose something and submit it as a presentation for Collaborate, which should be on this week. And so that I know I've got 4 months to learn it if my paper gets accepted. So I love doing that. Abby, you're nodding away there. How do you learn?
Some of you know I'm an Aspie, so I have autism. I'm on the autistic spectrum. So I'm a bit like Anne. I don't like conversations and networking. There's lots of you, and you all scare me, and you're all very noisy to me. In my head, it hurts. So I like I have part of my autism means I can see patterns in data like no one else. It just kind of pops out at me. It's really hard to explain. If anyone's seen the film Matrix, that's kind of how I see data. The data flies at me, and I see the patterns. That's the best way I can describe it to you. So the way I kind of learn is I delve into a problem that is either very academically challenging. So for example, like in data science, one of the ethical things that people want to know is a fully transparent machine learning. So something that you can completely explain to a human and is completely explainable is like the golden thing to go for in data science at the minute. So I'm doing loads of research in that. I'm writing papers in that, and I'm trying to do it. Other ones are like in the COVID-19 era, I'm kind of helping on some of the modeling and helping some of my friends in the NHS with the modeling behind it and how that's going to progress. So I'm a very kind of practical kind of, I need the problem, and then I'll kind of pull it apart and see what worked, what didn't work, and then I'll put it back together again. So I'm the person who Oracle come to and ask me to break things, and kind of quite enjoy breaking things, so that I can put it back together again, rather than reading or seeing, because the audio is too much for my head to take. But if you give me a problem, I kind of rip it apart.
Okay, so Edelweiss, do you want to read the 2 questions from Jean?
Yeah, and in the chat, we have the information about the ASTOM office hours. And we're going to post also the free certifications that Oracle has right now until May 15. So you can go through all the videos for the audience. You can go through all the videos and you can take the certification for free until May 15. So we're going to post, and in the chat, we're going to post the link too. So we
I
have
also
another
want to make
question.
a plug for the TechCasts. We have lots of great TechCasts here that are very, relatively short on different topics. And they are posted, I think Carrie posted them maybe the very beginning. So that's a good way of catching up on some slides too. Yeah.
For sure, too. So we have another question from Shan-In. Is there one piece of advice you wish you could tell your 20-year-old self for your career path? Or if you have one piece of advice to give to women just starting out in tech for career success, what would it be? So these are two different questions. One will be, what will you tell right now to yourself, your 20-year-old yourself, and which could be the same advice or maybe not. So
well, yeah, yeah. The first thing that came to my mind was not gender specific, was to say that surround yourself with good people. I think surround yourself with people who are smart. That's what I'm trying to. People who know perhaps more than you. I have learned that that's a great way to learn. Surround yourself with people who can challenge you. I think that's important.
I also think internships are great. If you can get internships and a variety of internships while you're in high school and college, that's a good way of learning. And again, being around those smart people and learning different aspects of the industry.
And I would add, actually, is sort of an opposite of a lot of it. I in retrospect think I rather stupidly finished my undergraduate degree in 3 years. I would have spent more time experiencing more broadly the opportunities available in college and not be quite so focused on academics. Not to say that it's not important, but I think I could have spent more time having more fun, and I think that would have given a broader perspective in my undergraduate education. So I think as women, sometimes we get so focused on surviving that experience, on doing as well or better than the men, that we forget to actually go have a good time. So.
And I would actually continue from there because I have the similar experience. Don't plan too much. I love planning, but I have learned that planning is bad. So just go and see what opportunities you have and grab those opportunities, and life will actually be perfect. So if you plan too much, you narrow your life. So for somebody who has sons of 20s, you would probably not expect to hear this, because you would probably expect me to say that I tell my sons to plan, but I tell my sons not to plan. See what life brings.
Yeah, I mean, the other part of that is being open to opportunities, right? Don't get so comfortable where you are that you don't explore the opportunities, even if maybe they're scary.
Exactly.
I left a secure job for one in the Obama administration that had a clock on it, right? It's a political appointee. January 20th, 2017, you're done, right? You got to take those chances and try those things.
I think I'd follow up with Anne. That would be my advice to my 20-year-old self. Don't be afraid to take a risk and to start with yes, instead of always starting with no, I don't have enough experience, no, it's too far from home or whatever. Start with yes and take those opportunities as they come, because that's one thing I've learned from my career. The men were braver at putting their hands up and saying yes to something, even though they may not have had the qualifications or whatever. And every time I've done that, it's actually been great for me and great for my career. And so that would be something I would recommend folks do, is just say yes, be more open to things.
Absolutely.
Point. I know if I was writing to my 20-year-old self, I would say, don't be afraid to fail. I had a plan, and it wasn't a very ambitious plan, but everything was going along nicely. And then things went wrong, and not only did I survive, but I became a much better person out of it and learnt more, and then each stage onwards got more and more confidence to go forward. So That's what I would have said to a 20-year-old me. Okay, should we get the next question then, Edelweiss?
Yes, we have a Charlie Berger here. Hi, Charlie. Was it difficult to get through predominantly male STEM classes in college as a woman? What's helpful to successfully graduate in tech?
Okay, I have a good one for this, although all the lads I went to college with, I'm sure, will hate me for saying it. But I basically was the note taker. So I had good notes, which I didn't realize I did, but I had good notes, and the lads would all photocopy my notes up coming up towards the exams and do that. Apparently girls, though, if you're going to do that, don't write in green pen, as I was told, where I would highlight certain things. Apparently it doesn't photocopy very well. So, but apart from that, but that was, to be honest, Charlie, I never had an issue with that. The lads I went to college with were very open. And although we were only 20% of the class, I don't think the girls ever felt intimidated or had an issue with finding it tough. But, you know, if you are, then be a good note taker, be okay with sharing your notes. It'll get you a long way in getting respect from the lads.
Yeah, I'll jump in too. I mean, I think, you know, I went to engineering school, and, you know, I never saw the male students as an issue. And even, you know, back in the 80s, in the dark ages when I was going to school, the issue was at that point, and to a lesser extent remains, some of the professors. There was particularly the notorious group in civil engineering where you had to take engineering drawing, who thought women shouldn't be engineers. And they did their very best to discourage all the women. And we all got lousy grades in engineering drawing because they made sure of that. This was back for the younger folks on you know, we actually had to draw with pencil and paper. So, you know, I found no problems with my male colleagues as students, whether it was on projects or collaborating or anything else. My biggest problem was math. I was lousy at math, which as an engineer is a problem.
Okay, Adel, I'm just going to read the next two because they're not really questions, but we've got a comment here that says, the women that they've worked with have always been available to talk to and genuinely sincere about helping other women. So that is something that we can do. We can also motivate. And I hope that's true, that we all do. Certainly I know the people on this panel do. And then someone's asked for a post to Heli's machine learning. So Heli, if you know of somewhere where your presentation has been recorded or slide share or something that you do, reach out afterwards, and so we can post that. Okay,
sure.
And then Adel, we've got time for one more question.
Yes, we have. Yeah, so Emily asked, and the question is, he said hi to all of us, and she said that's really inspired to hear you all. I have been passionate exploring the role as a speaker since 2017 and really enjoying the ride. We'd love to hear from you what could be the best options to pursue and explore further to excel as a woman in technology.
So I guess we've addressed lots of the topics here, and we talked about how you can keep learning and how you can keep working with other people. I guess a lot of what we said would apply to her question.
And you have to network. There's no question about it. You have to network. Attend conferences, whether they're virtual or in person, and keep up your networks. Don't just let them dry up.
My advice would...
I'd say put yourself out there. I know there's a great speaker in the UK, male, but a great speaker in the UK who said that just share everything that he learned. Because he knew he would want to go back to it eventually, and then other people were interested, and it just grew and grew from there. I know particularly the All India Oracle User Group are currently looking for more web content in this time. Reach out to them and offer. And it is difficult to get your first speaking slot. I think it was Heli that said got turned down the first time. I've got turned down many a time because people didn't know who you were or didn't know what you had to say. But you don't put it on YouTube and show them that you can do it. And or reach out to any one of the people that you know that speaks and ask them if you can do something with them, and do a joint presentation with somebody. We in the UK we had that as an actual an objective a couple of years ago, that we took the top speakers and we said, okay, here are some first-time speakers who want to speak, do it with them. And some of them did it as a Q&A, some of them did it as a proper joint session, and some of them just had the experienced person to mentor them in advance. Those, the ACE program, part of our remit is to encourage the next people. I can remember Edelweiss before she would stand up and talk. That's part of our job. So reach out and ask. We'd all love to help.
And my advice would be yourself. Don't try to be anybody else, because if you try to be somebody else, you will fail. So just be yourself.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if you're the same, if you just try to be the same as somebody else is out there, then there's nothing different to offer. We all have different things to offer, and it's that variety that makes it worthwhile. And we live in a time where everybody has a thirst for knowledge, and so there's plenty of room for more people to be sharing that knowledge.
And good speakers are those who really are able to read their audience well. I think someone mentioned that earlier about understanding what the other person is looking for and addressing that. I mean, not just having a canned presentation, but tailoring it to how you think the audience is reacting. I mean, it's important to pick up on cues that tell you how the audience is reacting to what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Both sides,
Yeah, you give the same presentation many times, and if it's good, it won't be the same every time. It will be to your audience. Yeah. And I actually find this, where we can't see the audience, more difficult. Right. And so that, we absolutely need feedback from people about this presentation. And, we can do more if there's more questions to come, or you want to hear more about what happens in the ACE program, or product management as a career, or people, anything. Give the feedback, and I'm sure that we'll be able to do more for you. Okay, we got one more comment here that they're just agreeing with Lauren's comment about the panel, and said, lucky to be able to work with several of the women in the panel who are supportive and motivate. And I think that's a lovely place to finish on today. I hope that we have motivated people. I hope that we have given people something to think about. An amazing group of women, and I look forward to working with them myself, because I've worked with lots, but not all of them. And I'll just finish on a story that, in fact, Heli might even have been there at the time, but I once took my daughter to a conference, and she said something about one of the presenters, and she said, oh, you know him, he writes historic poetry. And I'm thinking, I have no idea who she's talking about. And then I realized that I was actually quite shallow. My networking was only about what they technically had to offer. So I knew all about their career and their technology knowledge, but I didn't know anything about them as people. And that was such an eye-opener for me. So when you're out there and you're networking, learn about the people, because actually the best presenters are the ones that are presenting through passion, and passion for their subject and passion to share knowledge. So on that, Adel, did you have something to say?
Yes, so thank you so much Thank you so much, Debra, and thank you all. It was a very, very great panel. Thank you to all the audience that still hold with us. And remember that we have all the recordings for this session and for the previous ones in our site. And we're going to also share the PDF for this presentation and the recording. So